Frank Del Rio, CEO of Norwegian Cruise Lines, was on a webinar with the former head of the FDA, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, and he left us with some stunning realizations moving forward in the pandemic. Today, Carnival's kicking off cruises from a brand new port, but there's a few extra hurdles to jump through if you want to cruise. Plus, MSC Cruise Lines is finally warning that guests might need to expect changes for their upcoming cruise itinerary. Royal Caribbean is extending their Cruise with Confidence program. Plus, new vaccination requirements go in place on Thursday for Disney Cruise Lines. And 10 years later, survivors recall what happened aboard the Costa Concordia. All this coming up on Midships. Hey, welcome to the Midships YouTube channel. I'm your Captain Corey, and thank you so much for stopping by the channel again today. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. A little bit about us: we put out a daily video of cruise news that you need to know if you have a cruise coming up in the next few months. So make sure you subscribe to the channel. As we're getting started today, there's tons of cruise news, but I do want to start by looking back to what happened 10 years ago today on the Costa Concordia. From UPI.com World News, survivors recall Costa Concordia cruise ship disaster on 10-year anniversary. Italy hosted a ceremony Thursday in memory of the 32 victims of the Costa Concordia cruise line disaster that happened 10 years ago. The Italian cruise ship ran aground off Giglio Island after hitting rocks in the Mediterranean and capsizing on January 13, 2012. Survivors of the disaster recall scenes that happened 10 years ago during the ceremony on the Italian island. And one survivor said, "It's very similar to the movie Titanic. People were jumping onto the top of lifeboats and pushing down women and children to try to get to them." More than 4,000 passengers and crew were on board when the ship's captain hit a jagged reef, ripping a 230-foot-long hole across the side of the cruise ship. Seawater rushed into the vessel as passengers scrambled to escape in the darkness. The ship's captain, Francesco Scattini, is currently serving a 16-year prison sentence for multiple manslaughter counts and abandoning the ship after leaving before all the passengers had reached safety. And I'm sure many of you out there watching today remember the absolutely vivid, stunning, unprecedented imagery that we saw on that day that the Costa Concordia sank. And here at the channel, our hearts go out to anyone who was affected by the tragedy. Now we're going to transition from the worst news possible with the Costa Concordia disaster over to something that might bring us hope for the future of cruising. From cruiseradio.net by Bruce Parkinson, physician/cruise industry consultant, says the pandemic is nearing an end. The former U.S. Food and Drug Administration commissioner turned cruise industry health consultant, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, says he believes the pandemic is coming to an end, and he's planning to take his family on a cruise later this summer. In a webinar with Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings CEO Frank Del Rio, Gottlieb said he believes the highly transmissible Omicron variant is already peaking, and the next 2 to 3 weeks will likely show a rapid decline in cases. He also made a strong case that the devastating pandemic phase of the COVID-19 virus is nearing an end, and it will soon become a seasonal nuisance. And Gottlieb was quoted as saying, "I think the future is going to look a lot different than the past. This may well be the last major wave of infection," according to Gottlieb. The physician says Omicron variant infections are declining quickly in places where it hit hard first, including South Africa, the UK, and even early outbreaks in US states. Going forward, Gottlieb said the combination of a significant wall of immunity through vaccinations and previous illness, robust testing, and increased access to powerful therapeutics will very likely see COVID fade into the background of our daily lives. And that could be as early as this fall, Gottlieb suggested. A father of young children, Gottlieb said his family has been very careful during the pandemic, but he's so confident of a brighter future that he's making plans for a summer cruise vacation. Gottlieb goes on to say, "I feel very strongly that a cruise ship is an environment where you can carefully measure and mitigate your risk. People are looking to reclaim things that are important to them. When we get past this wave, I think confidence will return very quickly and we'll feel much safer this summer." And Dr. Gottlieb's words were music to the ears of Frank Del Rio, CEO of Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings, whose 3 cruise brands have taken a very careful and proactive stance during the crisis. And sticking to Dr. Scott Gottlieb's predictions, Frank Del Rio, CEO of Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings, said he hopes that Norwegian Cruise Line's Oceania cruises and Regent Seven Seas cruise fleets will be fully operational by late spring of this year. And speaking of bringing your fleet back to operations, there's great news coming out of Carnival Cruise Lines, as yet another ship has just restarted operations today. From cruisehive.com by Robert McGillivray, Carnival cruise ship kicks off sailings from Charleston. After covering cruises from Fort Lauderdale and Miami for the broken Carnival Horizon over the last few weeks, the Carnival Sunshine has arrived at her home port of Charleston, South Carolina. The cruise ship begins operations out of Charleston today, January 13th, with the first guests welcomed aboard in true Carnival style. The Sunshine is the first ship to homeport from Charleston, South Carolina, since the global pause in operations almost 2 years ago. Hang on just a second. Did you know that linked in the description below this video, there are links to all the articles we reference in today's Midships episode? Also down there at the very top, you can find a link to the Midships Instagram account. I encourage you to follow it. It's a great place to see behind the scenes what goes on here at the Midships channel and a really good look at some of the cruises that we've been on lately. And last but not least, in the description, there is a link to my Amazon influencer shop. In there, you can find cruise swag I take with me on every single sailing. Most of it costs between 10 and 15 bucks. There's a really popular t-shirt in there. It's been selling a lot. I encourage you to check out the links. And the best part is just clicking on the links does help support this channel just a little bit. Thank you so much, and back to the cruise news. Woo! Hey Google, turn on the office lights. Well, that was kind of a weird transition, if I do say so myself. The keen-eyed amongst you will notice that my smart home decided I'm just going to turn the lights off right in the middle of your broadcast. Hopefully they're back on. Everything's going all right back there. We're going to get into a story coming out from MSC Cruise Lines informing guests to expect some changes. From cruisehive.com by Mayntz, MSC is the latest line to warn guests to expect changes. While there have been no major cancellations for the cruise line in recent days, MSC Cruises is working to communicate the fluidness of the current cruise situation and working to keep guests apprised of possible disruptions to their upcoming sailings. And MSC Cruises did note that anyone that received this letter warning of a possible disruption wants you to know that if you're booked on a cruise right now, there are currently no changes to your itinerary and your embarkation should take place as normal. Well, we're going to go bang, bang, bang here on the rest of the cruise news. There's a lot going on today. You definitely don't want to miss what's coming down the pipe. First, we're going to start with news coming out from Royal Caribbean about their Cruise with Confidence program. Royal Caribbean announced on Thursday it's extending its popular Cruise with Confidence program. The program allows guests more flexibility in their bookings, allowing them to cancel a reservation up to 48 hours before departure. Guests will receive a 100% future cruise credit with Royal Caribbean. The policy now covers cruises booked by March 31st that sail by September 30th of this year. So it sounds like Royal Caribbean is ensuring that you're able to make it on board a cruise with them when you are good and ready. And speaking of good and ready, we need to talk about Disney Cruise Line because there's a new requirement going into place that you need to know. From CBS 47, Fox 30, Action News Jax, Disney Cruise Line vaccine requirement for ages 5 and up goes into effect today. By Debbie Lord. Disney Cruise Line says that beginning Thursday, all vaccine eligible guests age 5 and older must be fully vaccinated to come on board their ships. The new requirement was first announced back in November, with January 13th as the deadline for guests to be fully vaccinated. The requirement applies to ships sailing a US-based itinerary. Currently, Disney Cruise Line continues to require all vaccine-eligible guests, based on US eligibility requirements, to be fully vaccinated against COVID. And that's not the only Disney news we have, because there's a change of itinerary going on with at least one of their ships. Let's learn a little more from cruisehive.com. By Melissa Mayntz, Disney cruise ship changes to a Western Caribbean itinerary. Disney Cruise Line has informed guests booked aboard this weekend's sailing of the Disney Fantasy that their itinerary has been changed, dropping one port completely, adding 2 others, and rearranging the order of ports and sea days. This last-minute change is similar to those made by other cruise lines, as itineraries are adapted to meet the evolving port requirements. The sailing has now been revised to a Western Caribbean itinerary. Originally, the Fantasy was scheduled to sail from Port Canaveral on a 7-night Eastern Caribbean voyage. That sailing is now revised to a Western Caribbean itinerary. So there you have it. Even Mickey Mouse can't work his way down to Puerto Rico or St. Martin for the weekend. Before we move on, I do want to give a quick call out to Sandy, who messaged me on the Midships Facebook page. Sandy said, just wondering if you ever thought of selling t-shirts like other cruise YouTubers too. Thanks, keep up the great videos. Well, Sandy, I do want to let you know that I have been working on some t-shirt designs. I'm also working on a Midships website. All of this will be implemented in the coming weeks, and hopefully we'll have some cool designs for you to check out. If you made it this far into today's episode, why haven't you subscribed to the channel yet? We have a goal to have 10,000 subscribers by my birthday in the middle of March. If you subscribe right now, I think we can reach that goal a little bit early. Thanks for stopping by the channel today, and until tomorrow, we'll see ya on the Midships. La 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 la.